Hello and welcome to today's episode of Date in a Blink, where we're joined by Anthony Canapi, an LA-based matchmaker and dating coach.
Modern dating sucks, but it doesn't have to. Here on the Date in a Blink podcast, you'll listen in on 10-minute voice-only speed dates between strangers. The experience is designed to move people beyond mindless swiping and marathon messaging. Our position on online dating? It's time to stop collecting pen pals and start, going on actual dates.
Online dating? That actually involves dating? Is that even a thing anymore? But for real, dating should be fun. We hope listening in inspires y'all to try new ways of meeting people. Tune in every other week to hear a new couple go on a date. In between, we'll talk to relationship experts about how the date went and what we can learn from it.
Will our handpicked podcast matches find love on these Blink dates? Or will they say goodbye to each other after 10 minutes and never look back? Tune in to find out.
Before we jump into today's episode, here's a quick word from our sponsors.
If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain a bit. It's totally free, and Anchor will distribute the podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and lots of other podcasting platforms. Not only that, but it has creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. It also lets you make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make your podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. On today's episode of Date in a Blink, we have the pleasure of speaking to LA-based matchmaker and dating coach Anthony Canapi. Anthony is the founder of Best Man Matchmaking, where he specializes in high-profile professional matchmaking, consulting, and date planning for men, women, and gay and queer men. When it comes to matchmaking and coaching, Anthony brings a holistic offline approach, providing insight that encourages a deeper understanding of each other, as well as oneself. So hi, Anthony. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're super excited to hear your infinite wisdom and your thoughts on Jessica and Alex's date. So we're going to dive right in. So you've no doubt spent a lot of time talking with singles about some of the challenges on the dating scene. And we are wondering, what are some of the most common dating challenges and what advice do you have for confronting those challenges?
Ooh, where to begin? Well, first of all, thank you so much, Lauren Tolley, for having me on this episode. It's such an honor to be here and to be one of your experts. So I believe in today's modern society, because of the usage of technology and all these different dating apps coming into play, people are starting to set all of these unrealistic expectations when it comes to the dating apps. They think, especially for people who are not native to the dating apps, they want to say they want a specific height, a specific race, specific hobbies, specific viewpoints. And not only that, adding on all of the unrealistic expectations, I also believe in today's modern society, there is now a form of dating with the intent of wrong intention. So what I mean by that is, back in the day, people used to date for the intent of getting into a long-term relationship, and we still do that to this day. But a lot of people want to date, and then they get on the first date, they had a great time, but then they have this kind of like, it should be given of, now that we had a good first date, now let's see if we can go back to my place and have sex. And that's not the point of dating. If you wanted to be upfront and have intercourse, or if you just wanted to casually date, be upfront about it. I mean, a lot of people would love to wait until the last minute because they want to see a vibe check, of course, but they're not upfront. So I think my advice when it comes to confronting these challenges is having the purpose of dating with intention and knowing what you want to do when it comes to the dating scene. Whether you want to casually date, make that known. If you want something long-term, make that known. If you want something monogamous, make that known. Dating with intent also comes with effective communication. You need to let them know. You can't feel it as a way of, I need to kind of feel this person out. Of course, you need to feel a person out. That's how you develop, if you have the same energy, if you have the same wavelength, but you also need to be forward with your views. And you also need to let people know what you are seeking when it comes to dating, whether it's casual or whether it's something more long-term.
So I have a follow-up question. So I totally agree. And I think right now, people who are looking for something casual and something committed, they're all swimming in the same pool and they're not necessarily upfront about what they're looking for. And the dating world can definitely use more intent in that process and more communication. But the other end of that is over communication early on to the point where it scares people off. Like the whole idea of immediately putting like, I'm looking for someone to marry might be too intense for somebody to read in a profile. If they're looking to meet someone, potentially get married, but they're also kind of in that in-between phase. And that goes also beyond like, how much do you share about yourself? If you're divorced or if you are looking for an open relationship, all of these kind of edge cases that don't fit in the normal mold. How do you go about being really open and honest from the beginning without necessarily putting so much on the table that people get overwhelmed by just looking, if you're on a traditional dating app, if you're just looking at that static version of someone?
Right. So something that I always say when it comes to creating conversations, whether that is on a dating app or whether you're on the first date, is you leave the serious questions for the third date.
Mm-hmm.
The first date, I always like to tell, whether it's clientele or whether it's my friends who are dating, I always say, go in with a mindset of a curious child. A curious child wants to get to know more about a person, more about personality traits, what they like to do for fun, hobbies, interests, passions, goals. That's something where you should talk. Those are topics you should bring up on a first date. I think also what people need to realize when it comes to the first date, I like to tell people it's a very long speed date. So, in the typical speed dating aspect, you only have 5 to 10 minutes to really explain who you are and tell them what you like to do, what you do for a living. That's the same thing for a first date, but just for a max
Longer.
2-hour period. Yeah. So people feel the need of bringing marriage, kids, religion up on the first date. You don't need to do that. That can wait for the later date. What really should be on the first date, what should really happen on the first date is if someone passes the romantic vibe check, if someone really has interest in mind, if someone feel as though that there is something that something about their personality or the way they look that you want to get to know more about them. But not only that, you want to see this person and ask yourself, how do I feel around this person? Can I be my authentic self when I'm around this person? Do I feel safe around this person? Can I trust this person? And if they pass those vibe checks, and if you have interests that can go towards a second date, then plan something for next week or the week after for that second date. And then once you get to go on the second date, people tend to open up more about intentions and what they really want. So I always say for the first date, keep it light, keep it fun, be yourself, and just really date for fun. Dating is supposed to be fun.
We totally agree. That's our mantra. But where do the people who just want to go on that first date and then be like, okay, come home with me, where do they fit in? And that's what I'm trying to filter out. Like, how do you, know from the very beginning, if you're going on a date with someone who has the intention of, let me get to the second date, let me get to the third date, let's have those serious conversations once it's appropriate, as opposed to somebody who doesn't even want to get to that stage because they're really just in it to have sex, which, valid reason to try to meet people if that's what you're looking for. But how do you be upfront about that before, getting to that third date? Because that's not what you're looking for at all.
Right. And to that, I say honesty is the best policy, because a lot of people fear that. I've been told a lot, Anthony, I'm not coming across too upfront. I'm not coming across too harsh. I'm not coming across strong. And I'm like, no, that's your intent. And you may never know. Maybe someone else has the same intent. And that is something in which you can better figure out how you two can meet, so that you don't have to feel as though you need to waste the coffee date, waste a date at the beach, waste somewhere where you're walking around. Whereas if you're looking for the intent to have sex and the person has the same mutual agreements, then you can plan something more effective. Like, okay, let's go back to my place, or let me go over to your place. And of course, to those people, I always say proceed with caution, because you don't know this person. But if that's your intent, of course, be safe, but also be upfront, effectively communicate, and definitely use that mantra as a way of, this is what I want right now. I don't want to seem as though I'm misleading you, which is why I say you need to communicate with the person. And if the person have the same intent, then you can go from there.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and I kind of have a another follow-up in this similar vein. One thing that I I'm not sure if this is more just specific in the heterosexual community, but I know a lot of women in particular can be really, I don't want to say not trusting, but not trusting of the other person that they might be going on a date with, because I know even when I was dating, I had this problem all the time where I would go on multiple dates with someone and then feel like we're on the same page. And then finally, once you are intimate with somebody, then, you never hear from them again. And so I'm curious, because I know that you work with both men and women of all sexual orientations. And so I'm curious kind of what your advice is on both sides, for the people that are looking for something serious so that they don't, ultimately get duped. And then for people who are looking for something that is, a little more casual, how they can, I think, more authentically connect with people so that they don't end up breaking hearts. One of the things that I think I see a lot is that the people who are looking for something casual have this attitude of really not caring how they negatively impact the other person. And so I'm curious if that comes up for you in the coaching that you do and when you're talking with your different clients. But like one of the things you sent over in your bio is that you're guiding bachelors to be their true gentleman. And so I'm curious, based on kind of this conversation, how you define a true gentleman and what are some ways that you kind of help your clients achieve that?
Right. So when I mean guiding men to being their true gentleman, let's be honest, ladies, and I'm just being very transparent. We live in a very male-focused, misogynistic world. And you women have it hard. And I understand that I won't understand, but I'm willing to learn and understand the struggles that you as women have. And a lot of men don't realize that. And I think a lot of men don't realize it because they never had to go through it. So it's definitely something where I coach men, heterosexual men specifically. I always say, women are different species of their own, and there are things that you're just never going to understand, and they need that support system. They need someone to be there for them when they're going through a hard time. And you as a man should be grateful that you don't have to go through it. But as a gentleman, women should have this person be a form of leverage when it comes to they have their back. They can trust them. They can be the person in which this is a partner that I can definitely see takes my feelings into account as well. Not only his feelings, but he also is willing to listen to me and he's willing to understand where I'm coming from. And as a gentleman, there are things that you do for women that I personally believe should be a given. So, for example, asking her how her day is, how you can help her, treating her here and there. And I'm not saying like buy her gifts. I mean like go to a movie so you can calm her nerves, or having her just like talk it out and then you just listening to her. That's what I say when I say guiding men to being their true gentleman when it comes to dating, because a lot of men don't really think about women's struggles or what women have to go through on an everyday basis. So I feel as though it's important for men to understand that, because I feel like women would have more appreciation towards that specific partner when when men have that understanding.
I wish we could bottle you up and give you to all of the men in the world. It's funny, the very beginning of your statement, and we recently went to an event that was hosted by a company that's run by men, and they had drinks on their menu, two of which, one was reverse cowgirl and the other was the leg spreader. And just the fact that it was so geared towards heterosexual men and so focused on what heterosexual men would find of interest was just like baffling to me. Like, was there no women on their team to say, hey, maybe not the best choice of drink names, or hey, maybe not appropriate to imply that alcohol should induce people to spread their legs. And so, it really just, you're right. Like, the world is built for men, and it would be nice if more men recognize that, but also took steps to be true gentlemen.
I think the worst part for me about those drinks is that the description for one of them was boozy, fruity, and pretty too.
Just got to be attractive.
Yep. Yeah, because it's all it's worth, right? It's sarcasm. So
Whatever happened to the 90s and 80s where the men had to go up to the front door and he had to confront the dad and grow some balls and be all like, I'm tough. And he's like pooping his pants. And then whatever happened to like, oh, like, where's my gentleman? I got you a rose. I'm going to take you out to a diner. We're going to have a hot fudge sundae and I'm going to pay for everything. And then I'm going to take you home. Whatever happened to that?
So I don't know. I will just say he should have to confront the mom too, because it shouldn't just be about, a man confronting a daughter's, father. Mothers have a role to play too.
Right, right.
Yeah, and also not everybody has both parents, and some people might have two mothers, two fathers.
That's true.
Yeah, so I think it's just more confronting whoever their caretaker is as well.
Some level of accountability,
yeah. Yeah, and also just courting in general, right? Yes. Where there's so much that goes into, or there used to be a lot that went into the courting process. I will share a story that I find hilarious really quickly, and then we can move on. My Nana, I remember talking with her about what it was like dating in the 40s for her, and she was saying that essentially everybody would go down to, I don't know if they call it like the parlor or wherever it is, you've got the mental imagery of, it's like a bar with the stools and the poodle skirts and all that stuff, like pretty Grease vibes and all of that. And she said that everybody around the same age would date everybody, and you would be going out with people and you'd be meeting each other and having a great time. And then essentially, at the time, obviously it's a little more like quote unquote traditional, but then the guy would usually have to do something to essentially court you in a way to be like, okay, now I want you to be with me. Will you accept being with me? But it was never this kind of like really intense thing where it was genuinely a really fun time. I remember my Nana telling me about it and telling me just how much fun she had dating all these people and how everybody was dating each other. And dating at the time just meant going out with them, like going to a movie, having a one-on-one dinner, going for a walk, drinking a soda pop in the store. Yeah.
So I think I've told you this, Laura, but so Doug's parents are a little bit on the older end. Like, I think they're probably closer to your Nana's age than like our parents' age. And his mom has said the exact same thing about dating, where she, everyone was just going out with everyone, would have a great time. And at one point, his father, it was like, hey, I want you to go to be exclusive to me. I want us. And I wonder if that was a much better time. Obviously there are gender things that have changed a lot since then, and that's been really great. But I wonder if it was a better time for women to date, because there was almost this need for men to be better than one another. This is all talking in heterosexual kind of dating world, but there was a need for them to behave better than one another to win the woman that they wanted to be with. And so it wasn't just, you're going on a date and you're seeing one person at a time and you're getting to like, there was almost like it was like, because it was a free for all in a way and everyone was hanging out with everyone and having a great time, you had to be better. You had to step up. You had to really shine in order to kind of ask for that permission to have someone be exclusive to you. And so I do wonder if women have lost out on some of the benefit of that and kind of entering a different age of dating.
Yeah. Oh man, I feel like we could have a whole podcast just on dating through the ages.
Sorry.
And
I digress.
Now that we could have a whole other one, I think, on, because one thing that we hear a lot as well is that divorce rates used to be really low and now they're much higher. And a part of that too is because even though there used to be these great courting processes, sometimes who someone showed they were in the courting process was not who they were behind closed doors. And so there was a lot of people staying in really bad relationships. It's, oh my God, we could talk about this forever and ever, because it's so interesting how dating has changed over the times, and also culturally speaking, how dating has changed. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Doug's parents are from the Northeast, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's where my Nana grew up as well. So I also wonder if they were, dating in the same circles.
Same circles, maybe. Maybe.
Yeah.
But in any case, I have another question for you. So your bio says that you bring an offline holistic approach to matchmaking and coaching. Can you explain a bit more about what that means and what it looks like to take an offline approach to such an online world?
Absolutely. So when I mean offline holistic approach, so what I mean is, first off, there is no dating app. There is no form of an interface that you have to do a profile, choose like what's going to be like the best prompts for your dating profile. No, I do all the work for you. So as someone who does all the work for them, I'm generally saying that I am the human version of a dating app. So first off, there is no dating app. There is no website that you have to make your profile. I make your profile. There is no questions you have to fill out. I will ask you questions. You tell me the questions. I'll put it in your profile and I will do all the searching for you. So with dating apps, there are forms of algorithms and a form of ways of how you can connect with people. I do everything in an offline setting to where I go out in the world, or I do a form of social media marketing to target the best people for you. I reach out to them myself. I'm not afraid to tell people I'm a personal matchmaker. I think I have someone who's amazing for you. Can I have a few minutes of your time to get on the phone? And then I can get on the phone. If they are a compatible match, I reach out to my client and say, hey, I meet this awesome person. I think they would be a great match for you. We talk about it. If both individuals agree, yeah, I would like to meet this person, then what I do to keep it more in an offline setting, I do all the date planning. So when it comes to choosing the restaurant, choosing the time, giving them little tips like, hey, women, wear your slim fitting dress. Hey, men, wear a good collared shirt with nice dress shoes. And then I set something up very nice, whether it's small appetizers or drinks or dinner with a beach view. It's something in which it's all bringing back the organic part of dating back to where you get to go to an outdoor setting, you get to have those butterflies in your stomach. And then the day after, I would follow up with a date feedback form for them to fill out to see how the date went, if they want to see each other again. And if it is the case that they want to see each other again, I encourage them to plan the second date on their own time and see where the connection grows. But if they don't feel the connection, then of course I can vet my client and say, okay, what were some things that I missed? And then I just repeat the process again. Doing it this way, it brings the offline organic dating back to the modern society we are living today. People don't have to worry about the constant swiping on the dating apps. They don't have to fear of, oh my God, why am I not getting matches? If you sign up with a matchmaker, you are guaranteed an offline experience. All you do as the client is sit back, relax, let the professional take control. And if they have a match for you, they'll reach out to you, plan the date. And it's all a very exciting process. And I understand for some people, it sounds too good to be true. And a lot of people say, oh, is that a thing? Do you actually do everything you're saying? And I'm like, yes.
So I'm curious, when it comes to matchmaking, what are some things that you keep in mind when you are finding matches for people?
Right. So the biggest things that I always keep in mind when matching my clientele is their core values and beliefs. So these core values and beliefs are values that they've had ever since they were little to where at this point in time they're ready to go. So for example, marriage. Are you looking for getting married or are you looking for a life partner? Are you ready to have kids? Is kids something that you want to go through the process of the baby turning into a kid, turning into a teen, turning into an adult? Do you want to go through that whole experience? How many kids do you want, etc.? And then another thing that people don't really take into account is spirituality and religion. Are you devout to your religious faith? Are you someone who sees the world in an openly spiritual view? Are you someone who doesn't believe that there is a higher being up in the universe that we live in? It's important because having those same spiritual values and having those same values when it comes to marriage and kids, you're dating with an intent for this certain goal. And then another thing that I take after that is the preferences. And a lot of people, unfortunately, mistaken the preferences for deal breakers. I've run into a lot of men and women who say, I want someone who's 6'4". I want someone who's petite, 5'2". I only want blondes, no one fat. And I'm like, I'll put that on your profile, but I can't guarantee that. I'd rather match you with someone who shares the same core values than compared to someone who matches all of your preferences list, but doesn't follow the values and beliefs of who you are as a person.
Yeah, it's like who you think you want physically when you're dreaming them up in your mind is often just that. It's just a visualization of what you're imagining it is that you want. But that's because the things that really truly matter are not, you might have that picture in your mind of like the 6'4" blonde doctor in whatever capacity they might look like, or 5'2". But then, what are some other things? Like, do they have kind eyes? Are they giving you like a really good hug? Or, like those are the things that come out in the real world that you can only really tell by actually being around somebody. So I find it so funny that that people think that, oh yeah, I can just filter people just like I'm filtering for shoes at Nordstrom for what I want to pick out for the
Size
day.
8, brown color.
Yeah. Yes. Wide-toed.
Right. I think and I wonder if media really plays into this a lot, because we see what love means every single day on our TVs and on movies, and nowhere do they really go into any of those deeper things. Like, do we share these values? Like, you see them falling in love and it was based on kind of lust at first sight. And then they, court each other in this weird way, depending on what the movie premise is. And then if they end up together, that's the end of the movie. And TV shows are different, obviously, but you miss out on all the other stuff of figuring out if you have those shared values, if you want the same things, if you're trying to build a family in the same way, or if you want a family at all. And it's just kind of, I don't know, interesting to think about. I think TV shows now are starting to, address some of these things, and you see kind of more progressive ideas of what a family means. But I think we're a little behind when it comes to dating and what we think about, what's important when it comes to partnership.
Yeah. Can I share a pet peeve that I see in TV shows?
Mm-hmm.
A huge pet peeve for me is how common the trope of will they, won't they, on again, off again relationships. I find them so harmful, because they essentially normalize this concept that relationships, when the going gets tough, break up. And then there's a lot of like the cat and mouse game. And I just think it really gamifies an experience and makes people think that, those types of really intense emotions are what you should have. And there's a difference between going through the dating and the courting process and then making and building a really meaningful relationship with someone. And so I do appreciate when shows have those arcs that, there might be a little bit of, the cat and mouse of like, oh, I just really want them to get together, but then they don't make them go off and then on and then off and then on and then off and then on again until they finally end up together long term. Because I feel like it leaves people with this anxiety of, well, they were off before, are they going to be off again at some point? And then I think that can influence how people date and how they think dating should be normalized. And so for me, that's a little bit of a pet peeve. And I love it when that's not the case. I love it when a couple has a little bit of like, ooh, that cute, like the meet
Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yes, I love Brooklyn Nine-Nine. There's a little bit of on again, off again in the beginning, but they were just like, I don't want to be off. I want to be on. And I was like, yes, thank you, Amy and Jake.
Anthony, I don't know if you're a Brooklyn Nine-Nine fan, but
I'm a huge, that's why one of the only shows I will continually watch.
No worries at all. No, unfortunately, I don't watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine. No.
Highly recommend.
I love reality TV. Mm-hmm. I know. I just love watching Real Housewives.
Do you watch The Bachelor?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Oh, my God.
I just got up on the finale.
Oh, my God. I can talk about The Bachelor. Like, if you want me for an episode of like The Bachelor finale, we can go on and on and talk about like 75 minutes of like the wrongness.
Laura doesn't watch it, and it makes me, I'm like, no, who am I going to talk to about this?
No,
everything that couldn't have gone wrong went wrong.
Yes. But they're together.
And I want to talk about that because I'm just like, it made me go like, what?
Yeah.
What?
Yep. The most dramatic season finale.
Exactly.
Ever. Oh my God.
I have something to say about that relationship. Ooh.
Spoiler alert, I guess we should say. And then I'm curious what your thoughts are. So Laura, just to catch you up, there was, a season finale where there were 3 women. And one of them left because the Bachelor was intimate and told the other 2 women that he loved them. And she was basically said that if you love these other people or you were intimate with them, I can't be with you. So she left. Then he continues on with the other 2 women, having told them he was intimate with them both and loves them both. It was a whole big dramatic thing where one of them threatened to leave. He convinced them both to stay. They met his family. And after they both met his family, he was like, no, I want the one who left. So he dumps the 2, goes and gets the one who left, and then tries to win her back, essentially kind of soft proposes to her, and she breaks up with him and says, no, I can't do this. And then they we find out at the live finale that they're actually together. And they took the time apart. So Anthony, now that Laura's caught up on the short version of it, I'm curious your thoughts.
I'm just wondering, since when did this turn into a drama? I felt like I was watching a drama just all played out.
I feel like every season, these past like 10 seasons are all dramas.
No, but I could totally see like the finale turn into like a movie. Like literally he was like, I'm gonna leave. And then he's all like, I love you and I love you, but I love her. And then he's like running to her and he's all like, I love you. And she's all like, but you broke my heart. And then
it's a Lifetime movie.
And then it's like Lifetime movie. And then it's like, and then they do like that whole post like 3 years later.
Right.
Flash forward. And then it's all like, hey, how are you? Oh, I'm good. And then it's like, somehow they end up together by having sex. Like, you know those movies where it's all like, they talk, and then they just have this big, like, oh my God, no, I still love you after all these years. Like, that's what
I've always loved you.
That's what the finale reminded me of. I was looking at it and I was like, dude, what? What? Like, it was so messy.
It was very messy.
And then the finale, turn of the century, they actually ended up together. And I'm just like, why? Like,
although I will say, Anthony, I am very grateful that he did not propose to her in that live finale, even though Jesse, the host, kept being like, so do you have any other final questions? Anything else? Like, do you have a question you want to ask her? Like every 3 minutes at the end. So I'm grateful that he kind of read the room and realized that would not be appropriate.
I will see where it goes, but I don't know. I don't see this really going far, only because like, the way that he was like, I love you and you after I had like intercourse with you. But the thing is, I love this girl who left and I'm going to go to her right now and break you two's hearts.
Yeah.
And then he goes to her, like you said, soft proposes. And then she dramatically declines. And then we find out in the finale, it's like, we're giving it a shot. And we're just like, why?
The one that got away. I feel like there's something to, wanting what you feel like you can't have, but who knows? I don't know. But I do have a question for normal people now, for people who are not on The Bachelor. So as we slowly make our way into the next phase of the pandemic, which hopefully is the phase where things are starting to go back to normal, fingers crossed, and people can date quote unquote normally again, whatever that may be. How do you think the pandemic changed the way we look at dating? And what do you think might be different now in terms of, how we're approaching it now that we're reaching the other side of the pandemic?
Great question. I believe that when it comes to the pandemic, because of it, I believe there has been this separation of people wanting something casual compared to people wanting something serious. Because I believe ever since the pandemic hit, there has been this rise of virtual app usage, and there's a good reason for that. And there has been a big increase of people wanting to talk over the phone or talk virtually via Zoom. Because of the pandemic, you can't really go anywhere back in 2020. And I believe it allowed people to be upfront with what they want. And people don't want relationships just for the sake of having them. They want to find a right relationship and the right partner. So I believe the pandemic really allowed individuals to truly say what they want without wasting the person's time. And it allowed people to be introduced in a number of different ways to where if the connection is still there, they can meet in person, compared to people who wanted to look for the wrong intentions. Then you can kind of be grateful that you can say, at least I didn't meet this person in person, and at least I didn't have to waste my time just with the constant conversation of it leading to nowhere. I believe that the separation of people wanting to be casual to serious was there, and I believe that it allowed men and women to just be... I believe that the pandemic also allowed a lot of individuals to really think about themselves and put themselves first and ask them, what do I want? I can't go anywhere. I'm kind of stuck in my home. It kind of gave them this realization of self-reflection of what's best for me, what's best for me moving forward. When this pandemic is over with, what do I want? Am I ready to go back out there and date again? Am I needing this time to myself to self-reflect? Or are my values still valid even prior to this pandemic, and I'm still ready to go. So I believe there has been a lot of benefits when it comes to the dating scene when the pandemic hit. And I think what will be different now that we're approaching the other side of it is that I hope that people are just going to be more straight to the point and just more honest with what they want so that you don't have to waste the other person's time. So that you can just very comfortably say, oh, I'm looking for this, but I wish you nothing more but the best, and I hope you find your partner. Or I wish you nothing more but the best. Have a good day.
I appreciate that that's a part of how you're coaching people. And I think that, yeah, it's really all just about knowing what your intentions are and being clear and communicating that. I think some people I think some people harbor a fear that if they're looking for something casual, that people will immediately be like, no, that's not what I want. So, haha, nothing casual for you. And there's a lot of needing to trick people, but that's 100% not the case. There's tons of people that are looking for the same thing. You just got to find them. So I'm curious, some of the things that you said, I think are really applicable regardless of where in the world people might be. But I know you've worked across a number of big cities in the US, and I'm curious if you've noticed any differences in how people date, like specifically, or as an example, like do people in Los Angeles date differently than people that are in New York City?
Yeah, so I definitely see a difference when it comes to LA dating to New York City dating. So for people who don't know, I also matchmake men, women, and gay and queer men in New York who are willing to date California individuals. So something that I see that's very different is structure and the dating scene structure. So in New York, I even got the amazing opportunity when everything started to lighten up to go to New York. It's very different. And I can't really describe it because I wish I had more time because I was only there for a number of days. But I like to compare it as walking. In New York, people walked with a purpose. They walked for a destination in mind. Whereas here in LA, you're just walking for the fun of it. And
Yes.
I feel like in New York, there's this form of structure when it comes to dating. So for example, I've seen people in New York say like, I'm this, and that. Whereas people in LA is all like, well, I'm this, let me explain more about what this is and why it's very important to me. And it's more so, I would like to say, I wouldn't say casual because that's not the right word. I would say it's more flexible here in LA when it comes to what they're going to talk about, where in New York City, it's more structured of this is who I am, this is what I want, these are my hobbies, this is what I like to do for fun. But also people need to realize that the options in LA are more broader than New York. In New York, you're more likely to go out for drinks or have dinner, whereas here in LA, you can do mostly a lot of things. You want to go mini golfing, go mini golfing. If you want to go to the beach, go to the beach. If you want to go to the art gallery that just opened up, go to the art gallery. And another big thing that I also see a difference of is price. I think the pricing in New York City is a lot more compared to LA. And I believe that people have this form of way that they present themselves as well. I feel like here in LA, you can kind of dress up how you would like, where in New York City, you're more likely to wear a slim fitted dress or that nice collared shirt with a nice tie. But I definitely have seen a big difference between LA and New York. And a lot of people have this idea when it comes to dating that no matter what city you're in, although I totally agree that we'll never run out of singles, the reality is that the dating structure is not only different, but dating is still difficult to this day because people date with the wrong intentions. And knowing that, it can definitely affect the way you date depending on the city that you're in.
That's super interesting. Both Laura and I have experience living both on the East and West Coast, so hearing your perspective is fascinating. But I'm gonna, rather than continue this just because of time, because we have questions for you about Jessica and Alex's date, actually, I'm gonna dive into that. I'm wondering if there were any areas of connection between Jessica and Alex that stood out to you during their date.
I'm just going to be very forward and honest. It sounded like an interview to me. But when I was listening to the date and how it went, there were just things that I felt as though it just didn't hit the mark. Like there were the topics and the conversation was there, but I felt like there was just this form of a disconnect. So what I mean by that is I like how the conversation kept going and I like how they both kept asking different questions and wanting to know the other person's perspective. But I think that there were just things that it just sounded more interview-like compared to like a genuine connection. So for example, like I don't know who it was. I don't know if it was Tolly or Laura, but one of you started off the date with, what's the greatest gift someone has ever given you? I think it was something in which you could have said anything and it kind of didn't really hit the mark to where Jess had this amazing answer in a way of like having this cat for 18 years made me realize this. And then when she asked Alex, oh, like, what type of book are you reading? He was like, oh, I'm reading this book. So the next question, and like I said, I understand also that this is first date jitters. They're both nervous. They're talking to someone new. And it's a very different way of talking and having this form of a date. I believe that the jitters got to him. And I believe he didn't want to mess it up. And he really did put in an effort to continue the conversation, which I loved. He kept on saying, what about you? Oh, like, what is it about traveling that you like? Do you do it for the culture? Do you do it for the sightseeing? I was like, yes, you're telling the right questions. But why are you not telling anything about yourself? Like, I felt like when he brought up the book, I'm like, well, explain to Jess what the book is about. And if you would recommend this book.
I think there were definitely some moments of interesting word choices. And it's so interesting. Not everyone is everybody's cup of tea. And there is someone out there that is going to really appreciate that. Like for them, they're going to be like, oh, I'm glad that you told me that because, you know, I don't know. I think that there's good ways that you can kind of connect with people, and like that level of honesty so early and like that lack of a filter will definitely work for somebody. And I say that because, and so if my parents are listening to this, please know that I love you very much. But my mom is a little bit like that. She doesn't always have a filter when she says things. And it's just kind of, it can be really funny. And I know my dad finds it really endearing because she has so many other, also incredible qualities about her. And so I just, sometimes when I hear certain things that won't work for the masses, I'm like, it's okay, because unless you're doing something that's like egregious or like wildly offensive, I feel like there's definitely a good match for everybody out there. And it's just a matter of being open to finding and making that connection. But so I have another question. So if they did match, let's say that they did, we're not saying that they are, and they ultimately met up in person, what advice would you give them for building their relationship offline?
I feel when you're building a connection offline, you shouldn't judge a person on their flaws as well. You should learn to love those flaws as well, because that's what makes a person them, and you can't change that. So I feel like if there is a flaw that you have, you should own that flaw. And if someone likes that flaw, at least you now know, oh, wow, someone likes me for all the good and the ugly. And that's amazing. I'm not encouraging people to be all like, go on the date and don't have manners. I'm just saying, go on the date as you. And if you felt as though there was a moment where you thought you came off wrong, or a moment where you thought that you weren't a lady or a gentleman, then, you know, just apologize here and there and say like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I do it. Like, it's weird. Like for me, like what I do that I'm doing right now, I stutter and I overthink. But I say like, hey, like, can I just start that over again? Like, sorry, like, that's just me. And then y'all are saying like, no, it's fine, it's okay. And I'm just like, okay, cool. You know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think people really get into our own heads a lot about how we come off or what we say. And some people don't, and they probably should. But yeah, I completely agree that we, I think, are much more critical of ourselves than other people are of us. And acknowledging that shows that we're human, which is great. So we are bumping up against time. So we've got to do a speed round of questions here to wrap up. Anthony, $1 million question, date in a blank. What did you think? Do you think that Jess and Alex matched, and why or why not?
Okay, so I think the reason why it didn't, oh my God, I'm being on the spot. It's like, I feel like my job's on the line if I say the wrong thing and it's a different outcome. I personally don't think it was a match. To me, the date came across a little bit interviewy. And although I can understand that people get the first date jitters on the date, and it's something in which, there was wording that was like definitely, I just felt as though when they were just talking to one another, I didn't really feel a connect. Like, she would say moments out of like sarcasm and laughter, and he'd be all like, cool, okay. But
yeah.
I don't want to say like they shouldn't see each other again, because I'm pretty sure this was a voice chat date. Am I correct?
Yeah, it was their first date.
Yeah, so I don't want to say they shouldn't see each other again, because I am a firm believer of an in-person experience. You get to truly see a person's vibe, and you get to see a person's mannerisms and how they act in person. So I don't want to say they shouldn't see each other again, because this was a different form of dating. And I am a firm believer of in-person dates compared to virtual dates, because when you see someone in person, you get to see you get to feel their vibe and see their energy. So and then I'm also a firm believer that you can be a good dater, but good daters don't equal good partners. So I don't want to like play both sides, but basically what I'm saying, so that we don't have to have me rambling on. Although I think the date was a miss, I do encourage them to give it a try again and see what will happen in person.
So I appreciate that you said that. So I actually, I'm in a similar boat. I think that I don't think that they wanted to go on a second date after that one. And that's not a bad thing. Just not having a vibe with one person is totally expected. It's just a natural part of the dating process. But Tali, so what happened? Date in a blink. What happened? Yeah.
Oh God, am I ready for this? I don't know if I'm ready for this.
Drum roll, please.
Drum roll. You both were, your instincts were correct. They did not match. There wasn't a connection for both of them. And so they did not go on. We did not share their information and for them to continue the conversation.
I can keep my job, everyone.
You can keep your job. Okay, so we have 2 final questions for you as we wrap up. A question that we love to ask all of our experts. Do you have any quick words of wisdom or advice for our audience besides all of the wonderful things you've already shared?
Be open-minded to the dating process. A lot of people feel as though that if you try your hardest, you'll get results. But the reality is that dating takes patience, and you need to have patience in order to see the results. Whether that is 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, know that your person is out there and take your time with it. But parallel to it, have fun. Dating is supposed to be fun. You're connecting with someone new. And overall, you should have fun with the experience, have an open mind, and see what is possible for you.
That is wonderful advice. I love it. And as our final question, and before I actually ask, I want to thank you for all of your advice and for joining us today. But as our final question, how can our audience get connected with you?
Thank you so much for having me. It was such an honor to be on your episode of Date in a Blink. So how people can connect me is by 3 different ways. So for anyone who wants to connect on Instagram, you can find me at Anthony Canapi. That's at Anthony, Canapi. And if you're interested in being matched by me, you can DM me single to get started. For all my gay and queer men out there who are ready to find something real, I am the founder and head cupid at Best Man Matchmaking, an LA-based matchmaking and dating service designed exclusively for gay and queer men who are tired of being the best man and are ready to be the groom. You can find me on Instagram at Best Man Matchmaking. That's at Best Man Matchmaking. And you can click the link on the bio. You can click the link on the profile to schedule your free 30-minute consultation. Or the third way you can connect with me is through bestmanmatchmaking.com by clicking the contact button or getting started by clicking the get started button.
Awesome. And I will include all of that in the show notes for anyone who's interested in checking it out or connecting with Anthony.
That's all we've got for you today. Shoot us a message on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook at TheBlinkDate or at Date in a Blink to let us know what you think. If you want to try voice-first speed dating from the comfort of your home, download the Blink Date app today. You can also sign up to participate in Date in a Blink by visiting our website at www.theblinkdate.com. In the meantime, thanks for joining us for this episode. We hope you enjoyed listening and look forward to talking with you again next time.